The Air Force continues to experience a pilot shortage, partly because lots of pilots choose commercial airline jobs. But the Air Education and Training Command says there has been some progress, and the Air Force is looking to improve its retention rate. Retired Air Force four-star General Mike Holmes served as Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategic Plans and Requirements. He's also a former commander for Air Combat Command and currently a board member at Red 6. Daniel Robinson is a former Air Force pilot and the first foreign national to fly the F-22 Raptor. He's now CEO and founder of Red 6. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Gentlemen, General, I'll start with you. Give me the big picture perspective on military training and what issues that we're having there.
Well, we do have a pilot shortage, as you led off with, and strangely enough, that pilot shortage is driven by we actually over-retained people for a little while. Right after 9/11, we had people that stuck around. It was an important task. The economy was not doing well, and so we had lots of people stay. We made the fatal error then of producing fewer pilots over those years, and so now we're short on young pilots, and we need to experience those young pilots fast to be able to catch back up. So in pilot training, we're still using the model that we used in the 1960s or the 1970s to train Air Force pilots on the same equipment. Air Education and Training Command has some new efforts in pilot training next to do that different. And so there are a lot of new things and new ideas out there that we could bring from the commercial side over to change the way we've trained pilots in the past so that we can train more pilots faster and better.
And Daniel, what about cultural issues and how do those impact military training?
Well, it's interesting because the rise of technology has become so important as to how we are going to solve the pilot training shortage. And what we're looking at now is that innovation and technology is coming from non-traditional defense contractors, smaller companies that are outside of the major primes. And the culture often with these smaller startups that are going much quicker than the big behemoth that is the Department of Defense inevitably leads to culture clashes. So for the DoD, it's really important to recognize where innovation is coming from. It is coming from these smaller startups and smaller companies outside of DoD, and we need a culture in DoD that can accept that, reflect what is happening outside, and embrace technology.
So General, some more recommendations from you on shifting culture that Daniel was talking about, improving the training.
Well, in the old days, the way old days, when I was learning how to be a fighter pilot in the Air Force, we said things like pilots are made with the engines running and the canopy down, that it only mattered what you did in the airplane. But since then, we added virtual training in simulators. We've added improved threats to train against that emulate the adversaries. And the next step then is to combine those two and take what we did virtually in simulators, but combine that with real flying in real airplanes so that you can learn to max perform the airplane. You have to experience the G-forces, you have to experience the heat and the cold and the things that put pressure under a pilot to bring those together to train them again faster and better.
And Daniel, I'm assuming, of course, that's definitely safer than putting people in the air, but also saving money.
For sure. I mean, safety is of paramount importance, but to pick up on what the General said, it is absolutely fundamental that our pilots continue to fly. And so the question is, how do they fly real airplanes, but how do we do it as efficiently as possible? And the use of technology can really help to solve that problem. And of course, along with that, if we can, use technologies such as augmented reality, artificial intelligence, to replace the need to have potential adversaries to train against, then of course it happens at a fraction of the cost. And that's a tremendous amount of savings for the DoD.
General, the carbon footprint of the Air Force, their training, and it's not just the Air Force. I mean, you're looking at environmental impact for the Navy and sea life. Talk about that.
Military training, military operations use a tremendous amount of energy. If you go on Google Flights to go plan a vacation now, they will show you what the carbon footprint is of the flight that you're choosing so that you can pick an airplane with a lower carbon footprint. The Department of Defense is aware of that, and so if you can train a pilot with fewer actual training sorties, you have to fly. Maintainers have to fix airplanes and pilots have to fly them to be good at it. But if you can cut those sorties back, those training opportunities back, then you're saving that carbon footprint.
And Daniel, you alluded to this before about using artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality. Drill down a little bit on that and how that will impact military training for the future.
It's absolutely true. So the idea of a synthetic training environment has, been at the forefront of our minds for a long time. But a synthetic training environment outdoors is not fully realizable until we can visually see those entities that we need to train against. And the use of augmented reality now enables that. We can go up and see these entities up in the sky. And if we embrace augmented reality with a combination of artificial intelligence controlling the behavior of those threats, which makes it much more representative of the kind of modern peer threats we may be called to go against, that is a tremendous value proposition and something that ushers in a fundamentally new paradigm in training.
He just said near peer adversary, right? And we know that we're talking about China and Russia. What's the bottom line here, General? How does improving our training improve our posture with those adversaries?
Well, we spent about 20 years after 9/11 focused on a war against violent extremists in the Middle East. Russia and China went to school on the United States military and how it likes to fight, and they developed new techniques and new ways to go counter what we do and new systems to come against us. We still have the same systems for the most part that we had 20 years ago. We're still operating the same airplanes, we're still driving the same tanks, we're still doing the same things in the military. So we have to, while we're acquiring new things, we have to train really hard to make sure that our crews are the best they can be in those systems. And we have to think about ways to change the way that we do business so that we can invalidate the things that Russia and China did to try to counter.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for being on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.